Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Queen, your Art Sherpa, and today we're going to be painting this gorgeously haunted scene. There's a ghostly specter in a beautiful, like fairy tale background. Very simple techniques, lots of fun. I'm going to break down every single color mix, every tool, every technique, so that you can follow along at home step by step. To help me do that is my husband, John.
Hello.
He's going to make sure that when I'm explaining something that the camera's pointing at what I'm talking about, because what you can see, you can duplicate for yourself. Now these lessons are broken down into steps. So you can find your place. It's really easily in the video again, and they are live as that little moment demonstrates. So we've got a live chat going. If ever you have trouble getting into the live chat, I'm not blocking you, so generally it's something that's going on with the browser and YouTube situation, and you can always like troubleshoot it from there. And you can like email us support at theartsherpa.com, and we'll try to help you get your specific challenge like worked out. So we're painting today, step by step. Does that sound good? I think that
I
sounds
think it
good.
does.
It sounds really relaxing, and this is going to be a really beautiful painting. Thank you. All right, so we are on a 9 by 12 surface today, and I have the wish and intention for everyone out there that this is there. You have peace in your life. I think everyone deserves peace in their life. So you know where paint is on the palette, even though it's in the description down below, and on the video page on the website, which is where you find the traceable if you're using the traceable today. Even though that's over there, I still like to let you know what color is what, because sometimes they look a little bit similar to the eye and the camera. This is the burnt sienna. This is where the ultramarine blue is. Dioxazine purple, quinacridone magenta. Just above the quinacridone magenta, I put a small amount of black. I'm not going to need a lot for this painting, but I just wanted to have it there. Cad red medium, cad yellow medium, phthalo green, phthalo blue, titanium white. And there's nothing to do but put up step 1, which is going to be super easy step. We're going to paint the background purple. So let's put up our graphic. I'm going to get my sippy sips. Excellent. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. I'm seeing everybody in. Lily Cleveland's like, where's your spider hat? I don't know. Did I have one earlier in the year? I'm not sure. I'm going to paint the whole background this dark purple. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it's very nice.
Just paint the whole thing purple. It doesn't need to be neat. It can be streaky. I'm painting out my wish or intention for you, which is why I felt like I could put it in paint, because we've got so many layers on this painting. You can do yours in chalk, and you don't have to do them at all. It's really up to you. You are in charge of you. I'm only guiding you. I really try to help everyone to learn like artists, and to do that, we take a creative leap. If you're not familiar with the creative leap, it is to listen to yourself. Make sure you're not doing a lot of negative self-talk, because it's real easy to be picking on yourself, right? So you want to listen to yourself, trust your creative instincts, don't talk mean to yourself, have empathy for yourself. If there's something going on in your life that's making it harder to paint, you know, be understanding of that. Every painting day is not the same as every other painting day. Yesterday I had a really strange painting day with my patrons. You know? Every day you just have a different experience. You got to have empathy for that. Accept where you are in the art journey. It is okay to not be a galleried professional. You don't have to put that expectation on yourself. It's also important to be present. Don't live in past paintings or feelings about past art experiences, and don't put pressure over who you think you should be in the future. Just be in the painting today, and then of course paint with me. Now at the end of the step, guess what we get to do?
What's that?
Dry the canvas.
Dry it
Super
surface.
easy. This step is, everybody gets this step.
Super easy. Everybody can do
easy
it.
step. So if your canvas is resisting paint, sometimes it takes a couple coats. That's not unusual.
So yeah, just thoroughly dry your surface there between those surfaces. As she dries this, you'll see that the sheen kind of goes away. It turns more matte, becomes less shiny. That's an indicator that the paint is curing, and it's changing its molecular form. The water is leaving it, and it's locking its little molecular chains together to form longer bonds of little plastics, little hydrocarbons forming there on the surface as we watch paint dry together. See, anything can be fun if you put your mind to it. So thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget, check the link in the description down below for mini books and all of the other cool things we make. Those mini books really, really are cool. They're worth checking out.
Today.
That was a longer dry.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more moisture in my air today. Now, I do have my orange juice for those of you that were worried to the side. And I've got my water over here. I want to congratulate Beth on working on personal goals, personal health choices. And I think that that's really fantastic. And I just want to say congratulations on that because that's a lot of work. And also say that I hope that the good home sale is going through for C. Blanton because I think that's important.
Yeah.
Now you can use the traceable at this step on a dry surface if that's what you want to do, or I'm going to kind of sketch in general stuff and put in my figure later. So if you're drawing along with me, just follow along with my steps. If you're using the traceable, you can put it in now if you want. I'm going to come over in about a hand's width here. I'm going to make a little line and maybe a little hand's width here. So I have to have a keyhole of light really happening here, right in the center, and then it can be dark again. I'm doing this because I want you guys to be thinking about your surface in those terms, right? The keyhole of light and then the darker areas as we go. It's just a nice visual reminder. I'm going to go ahead and do an interesting thing. I'm going to take my titanium white, and I think I'm going to grab a little bit of my cad yellow. Oh, see, there was a little purple that wasn't dry. For the purposes of what I'm doing now, it's not bad. Sometimes that'll happen if I don't hard dry something. The paint underneath isn't completely set. But that's all right. I'm just going to go with it. All right, we're just getting that right there. We're just lightening up that center. Then coming over to this side, I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of the magenta and some of my Dox purple, a little bit together. And I'm going to magenta that and kind of blend it into where the center is. I'm using a 1-inch Princeton oval mop in synthetic, and I'm doing that because it's going to let me get very soft blending here. Can you see that in the center? Now we're getting nice soft blending. Now I'm going to come over here and get a little more yellow into this mix. A little more orange yellow. Kind of mix this orange over here. If it's very transparent, that's okay. We've got a couple layers going on, and we're going to be building up. Now I can kind of blend in here if I need to. And if I need to come back with a little bit of white to softly blend here, I can do that. Right now, we're just getting a general sense of something, okay? And then I'm going to come here on the bottom, mixing ultramarine blue and Dox purple together, and give myself a nice dark base. Now these brushes, I was actually at Michael's today and I checked and they are in stock. And at least they're still carrying them. I check that every once in a while because sometimes Michael stops carrying a product, and then I don't have that updated information, but I at least verified that they are still being carried by Michael's.
Soon you will verify what you have in stock.
Soon, we won't even be worried about that. It'll be what I have in stock, and I will always have it in stock. April, would zinc white work here or is titanium better? Zinc white would be lovely. If you have zinc in your palette, feel free to use that. You won't be sorry that you did. I'm going to dry this.
Then again, thoroughly dry. You can really see the sheen change when you go from the side angles, because the it gets matte fast. You can see up in the upper left hand corner as it starts to lose its sheen. No more sheens. There's so many sheen brothers. We don't need any more on the surface. So, obscure pop culture reference. It's a byproduct of being Gen X, I think. So, anyway. Back to the painting, I'm sure. Sam's reading chat. I should be looking over at chat, but I'm looking at the buttons. Doing this stuff.
Ooh, that was nice.
Yeah? We on a step now?
We're on a step, and I'm going to read Donna Clement's comment because I just thought it was so nice. I don't know what happened to my painting bug came back after being on a painting hiatus. Painting hiatuses are not uncommon. Many, many people go through them. My mom's gone through them. I've gone through them. Every artist I know goes through them. And she says, I have a hard time watching anyone else on YouTube. Art Sherpa just really clicked for me. I really appreciate that thought. That's very sweet.
Thank you.
That is very, very sweet. All right. I'm going to get my same brush again. And we're really not moving too far away from this initial thing. I'm still using my 1-inch oval mop. And I like this brush because it's soft. It's synthetic. It does a good job. And I'm going to get another very soft kind of blend going out here. So let's get a little bit of my white on my brush, and I'm going to grab some of my yellow. Maybe a little more. And you'll notice that I'm brushing back and forth and then sometimes changing directions. Now, I'll tell you what, I had to go grab the Artist Loft canvas, and it is very different than painting on the Art Alternatives classic cotton canvas. It's fighting me. It's fighting me. You get spoiled.
Yeah.
Grab a little bit of magenta in that. Just kind of work through here, and just making sure that we've got just a little more kind of lightness going on. I can get a little of my white on here and my blue, my ultramarine blue. It's just a place to start as I come across. There's just a bit more blue here. I'm not even worried about rinsing it out. This is really just about getting this base on so that when I do the dry brushing technique you guys have been really loving with the pumpkins and the rest of it, it has this sort of painterly background. This one really exaggerated that. So I definitely wanted to get into it. A little bit of my quinacridone again. See how we're kind of building it up? And I can just lightly, I'm not pressing hard with this brush. This brush works for me because I'm pressing lightly. Now, if I want the corner to be darker, I can always come up with a little more purple and blend that in. Look at that, getting that nice keyhole. I can even come down here with a little bit darker purple, blending that in. And again, believe you me, when we get into the hog brush, it is going to be wonderful. Those are really sold out, the ones that we're using in the course. A lot of you have gone and bought those Simply Simmons rounds that are in the equivalent sizes. I know because I went to grab one to show it, and they're gone. So it's like, oh. I know some people in my area are doing this painting. I could tell by what's missing. All right. So see, we're starting to get that glow, that light, right? Sometimes it takes a couple layers, and oftentimes in paints that are less expensive, building up layers or glazing like this actually leans into the strength of your paint, if that makes sense. All right.
It does. Did you see Mandy's question there?
I did not. Can you ask me? And I'm going to take a sip of orange juice so I stay highly focused.
She says, I have a hard time with the background colors. Like, how do you know what colors to add? Oh, that was an introspective question. Made me think,
it was.
Meow.
But that's a deep question for artists. How do you know what colors to add? So color mixing is a science, and you can definitely learn that science. Absolutely. Generally, it's a series of questions. Is it more red? Is it more yellow? Is it more blue? Do I see more green in this? Is it a bit purple? You start asking yourself, what color am I seeing in the back? And if I have a lot of purple predominantly through the whole painting, by starting out the painting in purple, I make some of my work easier for myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's going on, but it's a deep question. How do we do that? Because there's an infinite number of choices and And here's the hard part for beginners, but becomes your great joy later as you paint. The choices are almost infinite. They just have slightly different results. And eventually, as you get more skills as an artist and more experience, you will find that you have preferences and you have things that you like and that they're wonderful. But you'll know, hopefully, if you study with me, you'll know that there's just almost an endless sea of possibilities. And there's always a ton of ways to get a background done or get a technique done or a color to use on behind.
That makes So, thank you for answering the questions, and thank you guys for hanging out here and chat with us. It's super nice to see everybody today. You know, we love doing these Halloween paintings. They're so cool. I love them. This one's a little haunty. Reminds me a bit of video games. How it has a really cool, glowy look to it. I guess, I don't know. I always played a lot of World of Warcraft. There was a lot of this color scheme in there that I think I liked. So, there you go. Reflections of a gamer. I don't know if I'm a gamer. I play games. I game, therefore I am. I don't know. How does one measure yourself against the world of gamers? You ready to step it?
Yeah. I'm seeing everyone talk about canvases and how much that can impact your painting experience. It really can. It's wild how it does it. Now I'm going to use the number 18 Raphael Artini brush. This is a hog bristle brush. You know, it's about the size of it's a little like finger size, a little smaller, maybe pinky size. That's a pretty good thing, right? Little pinky size brush. I tell you that relative to my hand because every brush company uses a different number here, and that can be a little bit frustrating. But what I like is the scruffy nature of this brush, the loose blending nature of this brush. I think it's nice to have a hog brush. You can buy them in the Simply Simmons line. You can get them in the Raphael lines. You can get them, if you already have the Cambridge or the Silverstone, you're good. You're good, you're good, you're good. Lots of companies make this brush. Now I'm going to get a little bit wet just to prime it, and I'm going to dry it off some, and we're going to go kind of from here over. All right, so there's a really neat wild background going on. I'm going to see if we're going to get it. I'm going to take a little of my phthalo blue and my phthalo green together. And then I'm going to get a little bit of my burnt sienna into it. It's wild. Maybe a little yellow. And we're going to come over here. Yep, that's just what it is. And I'm going to use that scuffing little scumbling technique. It's okay if some of my background shows through because this is such a loose and emotional painting, right? Now up towards the top, I might add a little more yellow into my green mix, which was, let's go over it again, a turquoise from mixing phthalo blue and phthalo green. You kind of tone that with a small smidge amount of burnt sienna and warm it with a little bit of yellow. And then lighten with white. That seems like a lot going on, which is why, even though this is a simple design, we kind of like rated it a 2-hoot of difficulty because there's some color mixes there. We have to go to several little colors to kind of get it. But guess what, guys? You can have a slightly different color than me. It's not going to hurt the painting. Now, if I want to take this, interestingly enough, into a purple, I just mix the quinacridone over here. This is like a secret power trick because look at that. Because phthalo green and quinacridone magenta make a really lovely lilac. So by mixing this in, you can see that I'm getting kind of a lovely, lovely lilac. I can add a little more blue to it and blue it up. So I'm getting very subtle. Let me come up here where I know the figure is in the center. The figure is sort of centered. I'm going to keep moving over into my magenta. Now I might get a little of my magenta and my Doc's purple. I haven't really rinsed my brush. I don't know if you guys have noticed. And let's smidge a little bit of, there we go, ultramarine into it. Now, if I need to get some white, I will. And I'm going to bring some of my phthalo green over to this mix. Look at me go. But you can see why the minute you see it go together. This is how we're getting these very unusual colors and shades. That's how we're finding our way into that. Now I might get a little more phthalo green onto my brush and smidge a little white into it. And get a little quinacridone to it, but just a bit, right? And this is where we have that illuminated kind of green blue. And notice that I'm working from the mid belly to the toe of the brush, just being loose, just wiggling it around. Isn't that great? A little yellow into it. Might come up here again and just kind of add that sort of almost radioactive color up there. All right, that's looking really good. Let's call this a step, and then we're going to get the other half. And I'm just breaking this down into these small bits so that you can really see each part of it and how it comes together. It will really help you have success in your own painting.
What brand of paint are you using there?
Okay, so I have Sennelier's Acrylic. This is a professional brand of heavy body paint. Sennelier is a very old company. I have Matisse d'Arvon. It's a fantastic company out of Australia. They make great colors. They have great paints. A lot of products. Really like them. Watch their cadmiums though, because I think they use a more potent cadmium or something. It's the only one I've ever seen anyone have an allergic reaction to, though you should treat all cadmium paints with respect. Quinacridone magenta from Golden Paint. And what I mean by that is follow the safety instructions on the label. Like, don't eat it, don't breathe it, don't sand it, don't set fire to it. You weren't doing any of those things, but it's just important to know you ought not to. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow and mix in some of my cad red. And maybe a smidge of my burnt sienna. And white. That's a little bright. So I just get some white on there. It's okay. I'm starting to work this over here. A little more burnt sienna to tone it back. We know that the figure is in the center here. Now, where I want to have it half tone with my kind of green background, I just add that mix into my brush. See what's happening? Where I'm blending it wet into wet. I can even come right here. And what I'm doing is I'm mixing into the yellow and using the purple, and it's graying out, isn't it? Now I've got a figure here that's going to really blend these things out. It's just that I want to make sure that I've got that going on. The figure is going to make up for a lot of mistakes, so I don't want you to panic too much. I'm going to get a little red into it, and I think a lot of yellow. A little more burnt sienna into that. We're going to do something really surprising in a second. We're going to go over to our Diox purple. Cad yellow and Diox, well, actually a very bright lemon green is the true complement of Doc's purple. But for the purposes of this color theory, what I'm going to say is yellow and purple are complementary colors. And so by mixing my background color into my purple, look how I'm blending it up. That's how I'm getting those weird hues. If you've been finding yourself having trouble getting colors like this in the past, it's probably because you weren't catching that the complement was being mixed into there. All right. Interestingly enough, as I go out towards the outer edge, I get back into the quinacridone. I haven't rinsed my brush yet. I hope you guys have noticed.
That's really cool.
Right, this crazy color over to the Doc's purple and the white. It'll look really good coming between the trees. And rinse out a little bit because I just want some control. And I'm going to come in and get a little bit of my Dye Ox purple and my burnt sienna together. Now, I'm going to kind of come here and soften. See how I can use the brush to soften those lines? A little more Doc's purple up at the top. Now we know we're going to have trees and everything up here, but it's just nice to get this kind of going. I never miss the opportunity to come down into the bottom, and I'm going to take a little of my Doc's purple and my Quin magenta again. Make sure that I'm deepening. What these are is these are glazes. Because these colors tend to be transparent, I am raising the background in a glazing process.
Oh, that makes sense.
I go pretty fast with mine. If it's taking you longer to do yours, guys, that's super duper okay. Don't worry about that. You're all right. Now I do want to, oh, let me blend this here. I do want this a slightly better blend. So see how there's kind of a hard line there? I'm going to come here with my damp brush and just make sure it's just a little bit better blended. My paint hadn't dried yet, and so I still had room to soften that glow and blend it. Now I'm going to take my hair dryer, dry it. We're going to come back on the next step. You're going to love it.
So we're going to come back on the next step, she says. And I really think it's cool how this keyhole of light is formed using these colors. I'm not a painter, but I do enjoy watching. I've watched a lot of paint dry. But I think this is really cool, especially with the yellows and the purples. It's going to be kind of cool. I can't wait to see the next part, where she puts in the layers of trees and then the ghouly ghosty thing. So that'll be pretty cool. Now for the steps.
Step 6. By the way, thank you for bringing donuts, Wendy. We have a thing, if you're very, very brand new here watching our lives, if you're late to the stream, you bring virtual donuts.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
It's sort of really fun, and I like it. I'm going to take a little bit of my Doc's purple and my quinacridone magenta, and interestingly enough, this time my cad red. I'm going to come right here. I'm over about a hand's width, and I'm going to just very lightly brush up what is essentially a tree. I'm using a number 8 hog bristle round, right, from the Artini line on Raphael. Raphael makes brushes. They are an old company, and they're super famous for making brushes. And come over here and come out with a little bit towards the right and up. Good times. And let's make another little implied tree. See, once we have these in, we will know where our different glows will be and how we're going to put that. We have a good base, and I'm going to come in and get my brush into that kind of putty area that we had from earlier and blend that up into the tree. Just the start of it. I'm wiping out my brush every time. You can't always see this, where I have a towel in my lap and I just make sure I get the extra moisture out of my brush because I don't want it to have a ton of moisture in it. Now right about here, my figure is right here. So right about there is where I'm going to put my next tree. I'm going to get a really nice bright orange using my cad red and my cad yellow and add a little of my burnt sienna to it. I'm coming right there in the middle. I'm making a little bit of a bend back this way. Just coming up here. Another little branch coming in. Bringing that down. I can go ahead and get into my white mix right here, which was from my cad yellow, my cad red, and a little burnt sienna from earlier with some white. And I'm just making sure that we're adding that to the bottom of these trees. Notice how that puts them kind of in a mist effect? Yeah. It's just a nice little thing we can do. Let's get over to our quinacridone and Doc's purple mix, but I haven't rinsed my brush. We're going to make another little implied tree. Could be a little thicker. Nice. And then I'm just going to get right into my Doc's purple and kind of put in a thicker tree. He's a little hard to see, but that's okay. We're going to be lightening things up around him in a second. That look nice? I like very much.
Yeah.
Okay, now over here, I'm going to get back into my cad red, Doc's purple, quinacridone magenta. I'm going to add some white to the toe of my brush. I'm going to highlight the inside of my tree here. Looks nice. Got a nice little inner glow. If you're having a terrible time with your hog brushes, you just switch to your synthetics. They have a sharper point and they're more controllable if it's giving you any grief. I'm going to go right over to my cad red. I haven't rinsed my brush out. I'm going to line the back of that tree. There's paint on my brush, and that's why I'm able to do that. Karen Isima Loves Trilogy is talking about having empathy to oneself when going through loss. Karen's had a very deep and profound loss in her life, and she's talking about it was important to remember to be empathetic. We had a conversation going in group where an artist who's very talented, very capable, was feeling frustrated with acrylic paint. And they were really had been berating themselves for their failures and just forgetting. And the whole group came in, and I didn't even have to say anything. The whole group came in and said, but you're wonderful and you're amazing, and be kind, and, understand where you're at. And it's always so important to be understanding where we're at in the moment of something, because sometimes, what we're facing, it needs our attention in that moment. And it's okay that that happens. Even if we love, I'm taking a little bit of my burnt sienna and my Doc's purple here. Even if we love painting, right? It's okay that sometimes you need a break from it. Let me get a little white here. I'm liking that. All right. Trying to decide if I want to step between this and the next, but since the next is a different kind of thing, I think I do. So let's call it a step. Let's sip my orange juice so I stay all on my feet.
You are stepped.
I'm stepped. Steppy step. Now I could do my round again, but I think I'm going to switch to the number 18 Raphael Artini Hog brush to kind of work this space a little bit. And I want to kind of tell myself where the figure is now. So let's take our chalk from the top down, I don't know, 4 fingers. I'll measure it with a ruler so you know about how far I'm placing her. And just in the center, looks like about 2.5 inches down from the top. Or if you don't do inches, which like most of the world does not, 6.5 centimeters. I'm always so glad that that the rulers cover that. Now the shape of the figure is pretty simplistic. We're gonna kind of do a little thumb shape up top and bring a nice sort of long line down. And then, can you see here where I kind of come out into applied shoulder? I'm going to draw some folding fabric forward. These little wraiths are, this is not like a ring wraith. This is just, I think this is a fairy tale kind of wraith, but not like a ring wraith from Lord of the Rings.
Right. Could just from something from your mind.
Something from your mind. All right. So now that we know where that's going to be, right? Now that we see that figure there, what we can do is we can take our brush and start to put little bits of paint and implied leaves and elements around it a bit. So I've got my Diox purple and my quinacridone magenta. I'm going to add a little yellow to that mix for a second. And get some white in there. No, I'm just looking at where I'm going. Just how light I need it. And I think I actually am going to add, this is, I know it seems like a crazy direction to go, but I'm going to get into my ultramarine blue. I'm just exaggerating the line between the trees. Can you see that? That value change. So I went quinacridone magenta, a little bit of dioxazine purple. I grabbed some of my yellow orange mix and white, and then was like, oh, nope, I need a little ultramarine in there. I'm going to come over, and I haven't rinsed my brush. I'm going to just go over to my turquoise. You see how I did that? So when I do that, when I come over to a color but I don't rinse, if I don't have a plan that can make really muddy colors, I'm going to scrumble this around. But when I do know what I'm doing, what it can do is create a unity of color and really complex color blends across a surface. And if complex color blends have been just aggravating you, this is maybe exactly what you need. See, I grabbed some of that purple and I'm working that in. It's just gorgeous next to each other. I think I'm going to go more over here to my phthalo blue and my phthalo green, and I'm going to get, I'll add some of my Doc's purple into that. This is that darker color. I can always come in and get a little bit of my, I haven't rinsed out, phthalo blue, phthalo green. Oh, a pop of yellow here. Let's add a little white there. Kind of blended in, got a little bigger than I wanted. It's okay, I just blended in some. So Doc's purple. And that's all it takes to kind of get that in hand. I'm gonna rinse out my brush, and I'm rinsing out my brush because I haven't been rinsing out my brush, and every once in a while it is important to reset the thing. I'm going to take my Doc's purple and my my Cad red. And I'm going to brush right here over this tree. And I'm going to start to come forward towards the back. I get more Dioxazine purple. As I come forward, I want more Cad red. I don't know what was going on there, but it was getting me. I'm going to mix it over here to just much more red. I'm just bringing that down in. Grabbing a little bit of red and yellow into the mix over here. That's weird.
If you need a moment, just let me know and I'll.
See how we're just getting those implied trees up there? This was a very good lesson to show up if you've been wanting to level up your complex color mixing. And listen to me cough. Now I have some of this color over here, so I'm going to just take advantage of that. Since it's already kind of on my brush, I'll bring it down there. That'll happen to me a lot. I'll be looking and I'm like, you know, I've already got this over here. And then I'm going to get my Doc's purple in it again. Get my queen into that. Kind of just blend this over here. Smidge a little white. I'm trying to lighten it. And then what I'll do is I'll come dark in that tree. So sometimes there's this dance of I rinsed out. Of needing to darken or lighten an object in the surface in relationship to each other. Now I've got my purple and my quinacridone. I'll come over into my orange and grab some white. See how now we're able to go between the trees and define them? Get a little more yellow on there. But I haven't rinsed my brush, if you've noticed. This is a trip if you have not done this type of work before. It takes a lot of like, I know I can, I know I can, I know I can. So I put a little more yellow in there. Definitely a little more yellow right here. Why the yellow? Because it implies the light. Get into my orange. Have not picked up my brush. Right? Let's get a brighter orange. Rinsing out. We're doing good. Believe it or not, we're moving through. Now we have some interesting implied little very dark up here, and I feel like that's going to be a little bit of my Doc's purple and my phthalo green together, which if you did that video on how to make primary colors with secondary colors makes blue, but in this case it will give us a nice dark foliage. So I just want irregular lines there. I might even come back up here in this corner with that. That looks good, doesn't it? We're doing really good. Rinsing out. Want the brush kind of really, really clean. Now, I'm going to take my cad red kind of over to my yellow, and I'm going to make a pretty bright yellow and get some white in it. Between these trees, kind of in the upper part. I can be a little more yellow on the brush right here, coming around the specter and over the head, right? Because we're trying to create that sense of light and glow. That can be really hard to do. Blending in a little bit of light up there, and if I need to get into my orange more, I can. See, I did kind of like toning that.
Yeah.
These woods are starting to glow, guys. Starting
Yeah, it
to
is.
glow. We're glowing. We're getting the glow of the woods going. I have really rinsed out. I'm going to come over and bring a little white over to my yellow. Even more yellow than that, though. But like more pure yellow. Notice how that pure yellow really pops now? A little pure yellow kind of touched right there. Definitely here. And then I'm going to go back into my muted yellow, which was the mix of cad yellow and cad red. And then I brought some of my Doc's cad red magenta mix over there and added white. It's why it's important to kind of keep track. This is where paint management helps you, because you go back into colors that you've mixed. Maybe even a little more yellow here. Look at us make that background. We're almost done with that part. Just a little bit of last touch left. I'm going to rinse my brush out, get back to that yellow white, and make a white yellow. So in other words, it kind of will read as a white, but it's got a tint of yellow in it. You know all the whites at the hardware store?
I do.
Kind of like that. I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight at that part of the tree. And coming through the tree there. Maybe a little bit right here. Add a little yellow to it. So what this is this is light coming through the trees. And that's how we get that atmospheric background, is applying and adding in those light. I think we can throw up a step. All right. So guys, if this feels like, whoa, it's making my head spin, it's because it's very complex. The things that you have that you're challenged by is your paint management, right? I like a wet palette for a project like this because it keeps the paint wet longer. Sometimes when your paint is drying on you, this can be harder to do. You might want to grab a mister bottle to mist your paint every once in a while. Don't soak it out, but to mist it every once in a while so it doesn't dry out on you as fast, okay? Now I'm going to get back into my hog bristle brushes for my next bit down here. And yes, definitely. So we're going to kind of put some environment for the little figure to be around. Or maybe I'm going to do my figure. Let's start with the figure and then I can add it to more things. But I think I'm going to start with the figure. So my figure is going to be very much phthalo green and phthalo blue. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to add a little bit of a dark value there. Right here, kind of down in that mid space, I'm going to add some dark values coming down. This is kind of great because it's sort of fabric folds. It's sort of atmospheric. I'm using the, the number 6 Raphael Arnie. You could use the same one that you had before. I just want a very soft and kind of open line. Now I can always get into my white here and add a little white to the mix. I'm going to come to the outside of the head. We are doing a very simplistic part right here now. We're going to come back in with some purple in a second. It's going to trip you out. So we just got to get our specter sort of in. You see down here at the bottom, I kind of just sort of scumble that out and soften that space right there. Little white. And come across in a straight line because some of its fabric is kind of implied to be up on a little shelfy thing that we're going to put in later. Just getting this in here. Now, I'm going to grab my Diox purple right into this mix. Deep in that front cowl and dry brush that down. Dry brush right there. Dry brushing down here. That implies kind of like a little unusual space. Let's get some white into over here so we can kind of halftone there. Still pretty dark, but kind of halfway between the turquoise. Then forward, blending it forward. Just kind of scumbling up and down, making this soft, soft. Everything is soft, soft, soft. So phthalo blue, phthalo green, and Dox purple. Also a very good color when you're doing oceans. We use that a lot when we're doing oceans. Let's add that up into the... And I think I want to kind of pull it up sort of in the middle bottom here. Wiping my brush off a bit on the paper towel. Come over here again, phthalo blue, phthalo green, little cad yellow. So very light turquoise. Let's add a little yellow into that. down the front. Here on the top. Kind of almost down into a point. See how it's just so light, so spectral. Put a little bit out there. Very lightly dry brushing down, just sort of such light pressure, right? Right up the front there. I can always get back in to my phthalo blue. And then blend into my dark shadow if I'm losing it. Rinsing out and drying off often. Right? Come along here on the back end. Catching the front, what feels like a shoulder. Isn't this fun to see it come together? Just barely something here. Here I want you to be super light, like it's like spectrally blowing out, you know, coming out distant spaces. Back into the blue perhaps. A little more blue. So it's a hint of light, but it's not completely light. Try to brush that down so that's kind of defined. A little back into the purple and the phthalo green and the phthalo blue. Now we'll touch this up with a round later, but right now what I think is that we've got a very spectral figure built in, right? Let's definitely, I don't need to dry anything, but let's definitely sip our drinks and come back and add our little hints of the area around the figure. Mm-hmm. Steppy step. Now you could use a small bright, or you could use this, which is a 1/4 inch Catalyst Princeton angle brush. Any sharp, small, if you had a ruby satin angle brush, it would work. Just a 1/4 inch angle brush that gives you good edge on things. We need a lot of softness here, but we also need a few places with some good edge. So I'm going to take a little bit of my cad red, my cad yellow, and maybe I'll grab some of my purple here to kind of knock it back. Let's come over here, and I'm going to just to give myself a hand, because sometimes I am straight line challenged. Okay, and come here to where the skirt kind of starts to go out, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of a line. Come here and sort of connect the trees. It's weird, I know. Grab a little bit of yellow on there and kind of lighten it. Now I'm going to get some red on my brush. And from the cloak coming out, add another of that. And I'll just go ahead and get into my magenta here and come down further and add a little bit of that. So that gives me some very straight lines that I can see, right? Come over to my magenta and some white. This I can eyeball in because maybe these are hand hewn. They're just implied. So when I have those straight edges, sometimes that really helps me because I can come in with a soft brush, but the straight edges create an architecture. I'm adding a little bit of white and pink back here. I'll just get my yellow and white, kind of just mix it in there. And I'm going to just brush that forward like there's just a hint of that. Maybe a little hint. I'm going to get some, just a little bit above this with a little white. Take a little red over to my yellow. I know. It's just hinted at. And then I can get back into this round brush, which was the number, I guess this one's the number 6 round. You could use the number 8 round, just a round hog brush. I'm going to take a little bit of my turquoise and white, add some burnt sienna to it to tone it. And add a small little hint of a reflection there. Much, much whiter. This one here, and I might even get some yellow into that. So it's just barely thought about mixing into my purple. I'm just hinting at some spaces down here. Take my brown up to my quinacridone magenta. And I'm just adding deep color. I've got my docks purple and green over there. And what you'll notice is that this can create some dark shadow, and I'm blending it in. Come back into my brown. You can add a little bit of white to it. I haven't rinsed my brush. I'm just implying, I'm just hints. A little bit of my burnt sienna, my quinacridone, and my docks purple. Add a little white into it. I'm going to get a little quin and a little white. I'm going to find just some highlights there. I'm just picking out little moments. Across the top of that, just highlighting that a bit. It just works. Let's come over to this side. I'm going to take a little of my Cad Red and Docks Purple again together because they just do such a good job at this particular job. And I'll come re-highlight that little step there, but I know where it is now. Get a little of my magenta and Doc's purple. I haven't even rinsed out my brush. I'm not that worried about it. Painting subtle structure can feel challenging. Okay, I'm adding white to dye ox purple and cad red. And I keep adding a little bit of cad red till I get the shade I'm looking for. Couple highlights there, just under the tree. We're just talking a little bit about something. Added a lot of yellow and some white. Looking pretty good. Now I'm going to take my quinacridone and my cad yellow together. Just a smidge of white. Adding little bits of glow. Some there. And get right into my Doc's purple mix. It just sort of implies some of these like ruby colors is what they almost are. And they're just a little bit, they're just subtly in the background. Mix a little cad red on there. Come right in. See what that does? It's just delicious. Do it right there a bit too, because it's just delicious. And apply just some downward space here. Now rinse this off a bit, and I'm going to get into my yellow and cad red with my 1/2 inch angle brush. Just a little bit, a couple places. So we're really there. Okay, let's call this a step. That's a lot to, well, actually, before we call it a step, John, let me do one last thing. I've got my pink mix out here. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Sorry to do that to you guys. I'm going to make a very light pink with yellow added in. I'm adding it inside those pink highlights. Okay. I know, silly fussiness, but it matters. To make them look bright, you've got to have a little bright in them for them to show bright. Now we can do a step.
All right.
Now we step. Okay. So, final touches. We are literally in the last step. I'm going to keep using this brush because it gives me a nice, awesome edge. I'm going to take my Doc's purple, my phthalo green, and phthalo blue together. And really sort of tidy up the forward fold of the hood. And a little bit right here. And maybe just a little bit on the inside. It's not a big thing, but it does need to be there. I'm going to come over to my phthalo green and my titanium white. And a little bit of my cad yellow. Had just a ton of white. Maybe a little more cad yellow. And I'm going to come on the inside here. And add a little bit of that right there. Let's get a little more white. We need a very light color. On the inside edge of the cowl. See how that just picks that up? Right there on the top. And a little touch at the front. It's because this is painterly, sometimes it's that subtle mark. It's a highlight here, it's a highlight here, it's a highlight here to get it to really, really come together. A little bit there maybe. Add a little highlight into that back part of the just a little bit there. So see how that gives him some shape?
Yeah.
Back into my bright green. Get into my kind of turquoise coming down. Kind of highlight back there. Finishing touches, right? Let's get into that yellow green and some white. It's pretty vibrant. Highlight inside those. That's very distant. Something could be there a little bit distant. Something could be there. Little light behind him. Slight dry brush here. I think I might kind of smudge that down. It's got to be very little. So what are we doing? We're catching little highlights which give our space some shape. I've got my quinacridone and my white and cad yellow. I'll come over to this middle range mix I've been making, which has been that strange putty orange the whole time. Adding a little bit of white. And I'm just going to make sure that has a little bit of a highlight. That has a little bit of a glow. Come here and a little more putty than that. That's a little white. See, add a little glow there. Do you see it's like the background is coming out? That is very important. Now, my very favorite part, and I might want to take my hog brush very dried out and just grab some of my Specter color and just make sure that this is soft right here because he's sort of soft. I'm just softening him a bit. Take your cad red and a little cad yellow. I'm just still using, I'm using the point of the angle brush. Let's bring some floating up here. These are like embers. Yeah. Magic little embers that are coming away. I'm adding more yellow as I take them back.
All right.
All right. Now, I don't need it to be a whole new step, but I want to dry my embers. So we're going to dry it, but it's not a new step.
All right.
It's just so that I can pop the yellow and white on them.
Just want to be able to leave a little. So when you add the highlights, if it's not thoroughly dry, you can muddle it with the color below, so it's less like a highlight, more like a mid-tone. So if you thoroughly dry it, then you'll get that pop pop.
All right, take a deep breath. I forgot to tell you guys to breathe deep this one. Take a deep breath because we really did it. This is a subtle yet very challenging painting. So if you're like, this feels a little challenging, I'm going to be like, yeah, it's reasonable that it does. It's totally reasonable that it does. I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow and white here, right? Mixed together, but still pretty pure cad yellow, just with some white in it. And I'm going to highlight a couple spots inside those embers. Maybe a little lighter as we come over. See how we're doing? Rinse out. You can use a detail brush, a detail round, if you're finding that this detail work with the angle brush is challenging, and that's okay if it feels that way. I'm going to adjust on the point of my angle brush. You can use a detail. Come in and center out some of the ember on the red and yellow. It's a touch. It's not big. You don't want to take out everything you've done. You need the 3 values. That's the hottest part of the ember. I've taught a lot of fire painting. If you've been with me before, you kind of know what the deal is and why this works. But this is how you get something to look like it's burning and glowing on the surface. Do you love it? Very much love it. Awesome. Miss Tammy K says, this is one awesome painting. Thank you very much. I actually am pretty pleased with this just generally. It's so those of you guys that know how the design process went, I was away from my studio and I had my digital tablet with me and I used a couple programs, one of which my kids always inform me don't recommend, which is Sketchbook. And they say it's Procreate is better. And, you know, so like, I do like Sketchbook. I like Photoshop. I'm not great at Procreate, but I kind of get in there and I get these little things worked out. Adobe Fresco, I really like because it looks like watercolor. It looks like acrylic. It looks like the medium it is. Yeah. So when I paint with it, I can kind of think about, would this work in acrylic painting? Like, will it work? And so that's sort of an important thing with that I like about it. Now I'm going to get my signature brush. And I think I'll just get into maybe my putty color. So I've just taken some water and a little bit of white over to my purple. And I'm going to just come here and make a signature. No one was really, I really love the people that like this was like their favorite painting because it was like one of those weird paintings like a lot of people weren't sure they liked, but I think it was one of the prettiest ones I did. And I think it's one of those gem lessons that teaches some like level you up art skills. Because these are maybe some of the hardest color transitions when you're going from the yellows into the, like this color transition is no joke. It is tough. So that's a really good thing to know how to do and have in your art bucket where you can do it. I mean, we could have come in and done this with like a palette knife and everything too, I think. And that might have been another good way of doing it, but I'm trying to kind of stick in the same materials. Now, this is Tuesday. Not if you're rewatching it on another day, but we initially did this live on Tuesday. We're going to meet again on Thursday and Saturday. So I definitely want to see you for that. I love seeing your versions of these paintings in group. That's always just a big joy to me. If you don't love Facebook, we have a Deviant, right? What is it? Yeah, Deviant. Just so many platforms now. Sometimes I'm just like... You're
talking about Discord?
Discord, thank you.
Okay, I was like, Deviant? We don't have any.
No, that's why I was asking you. Well, I couldn't remember.
I didn't
it's
know
Discord.
where you were.
We have a Discord, and it has more of that Discord vibe, and it's all chatting, all art sharing in there. We've got Facebook if you're on Facebook. Woo. Twitter if you're still on Twitter. Woo! Woo! Pinterest if you're on Pinterest. TikTok if you're on TikTok. All the places. Woo! Instagram. We're also like little time lapses of these may drop here and there. So be loving to them if you see them.
Psst,
And Mandy says, this one is amazing, challenging, but gorgeous. Thank you so much. And, you know, it's just been great to have you guys here today. Breathe deep, breathe out. Creative time is important. What's really important is that you be good to yourself. Be compassionate to you. Be kind to others. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.